last May was very sort of like make it or break it moment for the company. If we raised our Series B and then decided to pivot, which is I would recommend that to very few people to actually go and try and do that.
Hello again, and welcome to the Shaping Design podcast, where we help you get better at design through stories, strategies, and tactics. I'm Mitchell Bernstein. Today we had an amazing guest in the pod, the one, the only Jorn van Dijk, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but Jorn's a great friend of the pod. He's been a huge supporter of our efforts, and we can't thank him enough for that, and he was able to make time with us to sit down and chat about the future of Framer, AI and Framer, how they're creating a sustainable culture, and deciding when to hire, who to hire, what do they look for when they hire, and so much more. You're going to love this episode. But before we jump right in, I need to ask you to do us a huge favor. This whole podcast is edited and shot and recorded and whatever, all by myself and Pascal. And it would mean a lot to us if you just subscribed on YouTube and Spotify or wherever you listen to it, so we know that we should continue doing this podcast. It's a lot of effort on our part, and we really love doing it, but we want to make sure that you also love it too. So give us a thumbs up on YouTube if you like this episode. If you really like it, then subscribe, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to this. And with that being said, let's get into it.
It was hard to get this one in the books, and I'm glad we did. How's it going?
Good. I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Pretty good. It's pretty busy. We're working on a bunch of very exciting releases. So we can talk more about that later.
Thank you for joining. I know, again, like you said, it was hard to get this one scheduled. We kind of went back and forth for, I want to say like a little more than a month and a half, 2 months on trying to figure out the right date. A lot of conflicting dates, a lot of things happening. Today's actually my first day at my new job. So it's kind of like a lot going on today. Interviewing you, that's starting. Meeting coworkers for the first time.
What's the new gig?
I'm working at a company called Cardinal. I've been contracting with them for a while, and Cardinal is, I don't want to say quite yet what we're working on per se, but we're basically a tool for product managers.
Okay.
So it's kind of like Figma is to designers, Cardinal would be for PMs.
Okay. So like big scheduling, calendar, ticketing system. Like what angle are you?
Yeah, right now it focuses a lot on writing specs and features, and then figuring out how to prioritize those, figuring out what companies what features, and why you should build what features. How do you understand what's in your system? And there's a bunch going on. There's a lot going on right now. I'm the first employee, and we're just starting the trying to get the idea going and trying to see what users really think of the thing, and it's exciting. It's really fun.
Awesome.
I like
a startup.
Yeah, it's a brand new startup. It's like YC backed and everything. It's great. And
congrats. That's great.
Thank you. And the founder, or the founders, two founders, the CEO, or I don't even know. It's weird when it's like a small company. And I'll tell you why this is important and how I'm going to ask you a question after this. Small companies, the roles of like CEO, CTO, lead design, head design, like I'm the only designer, right? There's only 3 employees, including the CEO, CTO, or developer, basically PM. So it's kind of like weird with the titles. It's just kind of like, what do we need to get done? I'll do branding, marketing. I'll also do, and I focus on the products, the UI, UX, information architecture, that kind of stuff. But we're really trying to figure out market fit more than create a support system. And your company, I just heard a podcast with you on it. I don't want to like repeat questions other people asked you. I want to like really dive into deeper questions.
Cool.
You're trying to reach 100 million in ARR, or what was the number?
ARR.
Or something like that?
Okay. ARR,
yeah. Okay, so Framer's not small anymore. It's pretty big. It depends. It's pretty big compared to where I'm at right now.
I mean, yeah. But 45 people compared to most of our competitors is tiny. It is, I mean, Figma is at like 800, 900 people. Webflow is like well above 250, 300. So yeah, we're a startup compared to those guys. And
Does that
then
bother you?
no, not at all. I think we got to this place. We were bigger before we pivoted, and your company sort of like needs to be ready for scaling and growing sort of like sustainably. Have the right people in place to add more people to the company, and we weren't when we started scaling, and so it became a bit chaotic for a little bit. Right, and it's also like as a founder or as a group of people that started at a company, you sort of have to like learn how to grow that. It's not like you can't just like s- yeah run 100 people company with no experience. You need a little bit of like figuring out how to get there. And so 45 people for us today is an extremely good size. I think that enables us to go fast, and I think the group that we now have together, that's like it's also that's a lot of people that have been with the company for multiple years. Some of them are like year one, some of them are year two, and then most of them will be like obviously like later. But and I think by now we would be ready for onboarding more people into the company because we got such a good sort of like base group together to take on a little more risk. But you put 5 extra people to work in product, as talented as those people may be, they've never worked together. They've never worked together with people at the company. They come in with different experiences, different expectations from a work environment. What it effectively, end of the day, it's a job, and those people need time to really like get dialed into each other and find a good rhythm and a good groove or good flow to start shipping high quality stuff. And that's only on the product side. There's also like commercial side where you need to get people to work together well, and operations and engineering, infra. It's a lot of it. Our idea is like if we can get really talented people together, work together for a long time, we can probably get a really highly efficient company. Um, we can build a really highly efficient company if we can get to 100 on 100. In the last podcast, I asked people like, if you know of a company that has done this, then I'd love to talk to them. And I don't think there's been any responses. So that doesn't indicate it cannot be done. But it might be too aggressive. Maybe you need a little more people to get to 100 million. But it's also for us. It's more of a way to think about, how do you problem solve as a business, and typically, or at least like in the last couple of years when venture capital was relatively easy to get by, a lot of the answers for how do you solve a problem was like, well, you just hire a person, right? Like try to find hire a person to figure out your sales, hire a person to figure out product market fit. And that doesn't really work in my view. Like you can't just like hire people for problems you don't understand. And if you do understand the problems that you're trying to solve, then it becomes easier to find people to then help you solve those problems. And that's more of like a mentality that I think we now have in the company, is we try to hire people when it really starts to hurt, and then only try to like hire people if we think we have a good idea of like how to make them successful and how to get them really like flowing with the rest of the company. And then, end of the day, I'm not that married to that 100 on 100. That could be, I would take 80 on 152. No worries. But, I would also take 150 on 80. That also be fine.
So, okay, what would somebody need to join Framer to fit in and become efficient? Like, you're obviously looking for something, a way of thinking or a way of working or some sort of way to mesh. What does it look like to you?
It really depends on what type of role. I think, not, and it's not equal for 50 people. And so with more people, it's going to be even more diverse. I think there's always like in startups, in your case, probably like if you join the earliest stage startup, then you enjoy solving problems. And that makes you, in my book, like a startup person, right? A startup person is a person that is, enjoying the process of figuring things out on the job, multitasking over a range of different skill sets, from talking to people in interviews to building something to testing something to breaking things to marketing something, just to get things going. And we got a group of people like that at the company. The founders are pretty much always to be guaranteed to be people like that, because like they have to drive most of the results early on. And then like in product and design, we have there's different skill sets. It's more towards, are you active in the community? Do you understand the product? Do you understand web design? There's a lot of like technical knowledge about the space that you need to be efficient. There's a lot of user research that you're doing, and then obviously like there's the building of the product itself, and then shipping the features. Like there's a whole that's a big range of skills that we're asking product designers specifically to have. And there's like product engineering is different. You can have like the front end product engineers. It can be more tailored towards like actual like back end building, and more like heavy engineering. I can go into details in all of those if you want, but
I was going to ask about, so like you mentioned, like trying to figure out what's the right problem to solve. So what are you trying to solve? Like what is the mission of Framer then? Like, is it, because it's evolved over time too? Like what was it before, or what is it now?
So our idea with prototyping in the first 5 or 6 years of the company was honestly pretty simple. We thought that all product design would eventually start to become some form of prototype. And we thought, prototyping is, and most designers buy into this. If you tell them this story, like everybody will say like, yes, prototyping is the quickest way to validate an idea, and it's the best way to get sign off from, a client, or the,
Mm-hmm.
my manager, or from engineering. And, people will really almost, 9 out of 10 designers will say that is a very effective way to work. And we were, that was, the vision that we were driving. We're like, all right, if we can get people to do high fidelity prototyping and make that easy enough so that more people can do it, then at some point people are going to skip sketching, whiteboarding, low fidelity mock-up making. They're going to skip most of that. It's going to be more like, I have an idea, I'm going to prototype what that would look and feel like. And I think, for a variety of reasons, that never really became true. I think the answer for the industry has always been, or in the last couple of years, honestly, has been more that low fidelity prototyping was the right answer. So just like connect some screens, and it's sort of like good enough to get an idea across the table. And then an even worse answer is that no prototyping seems to be also kind of still fine. And so that's where we found ourselves a couple of years ago. In big tech companies, prototyping still like pretty big deal, but and we had most of those as customers of Framer. But then when you started looking, at the behavior of designers in those companies, it was still a subset of designers that was prototyping. Like not even Facebook or Amazon would have 100 on 100 designers would be prototyping. It would be more like 20 on 100 would be prototyping, which is, if you want to build a bigger business and you can only get 20% of the biggest tech companies in the United States, their design team, to prototype with your product, then, you can, you can only get so big. And so we were building a pretty healthy business, but nothing that was explosive, that was more in line with our ambitions.
Let me ask you a question. You can confirm or deny, or agree or disagree with this statement. I have a theory why I think it didn't work.
Go for it.
And I think, and I'm glad it didn't work, because it pushed you guys into something I think even better. But the reason why I think prototyping to the level that you guys were experimenting with it with Framer, it didn't work at a wide scale in the industry, a couple of reasons. But one theory is a prototype is an idea communicated with interactions, and you can play with it, you can try it out, whatever. There's an effort, there's an effort to it when you actually have to build that and spend time building it. But the main reason why it doesn't work is because at a large scale is because maybe it's only to help convince somebody of something. Because how often are the exact prototypes the final product? Very little. They're a prototype. They're meant to be ephemeral, throw it out, try again. Uh, but oftentimes people don't have time to build the prototype because still people don't know code. And then those who still do know code, those who whatever, they just use whatever tools that are at their disposal to just convince others about their ideas. Those who resonate with the idea can help move it forward. And I don't know how important for so many big companies, you know, the for most their bottom line, or actually for most their revenue comes from a few ideas that might need to be tweaked, but don't need to necessarily be convinced that an entire new. And this is just my personal theory that prototypes are a requirement. Like they're not necessary to convince other people, whereas other ideas are faster. You can do a quick mock-up, talk to it, and that's enough for somebody to say, "Okay, that there we go. We can just move forward with that because I've been convinced." Do you agree with that
Yeah.
kind of statement, or do you think that there's more to
Yeah.
it than that?
I mean, we'll never know, but I think that's pretty much spot on, right? I think, our idea was we can make this so easy that you wouldn't really consider making just a mock anymore and then do all the, look at this screen and then, oh, I have another one. And then imagine that this one flies over that one. Like that all always seemed very silly that is how we would, express interactivity to anyone. And but you're right. I think, we never got to the level where it would be less work to create a prototype instead of more. Like there's still, if you want to build a high fidelity prototype, the learning curve is high even, and you make all the tools in the world to make that easier. Then the problem became like, but now I'm spending all this time making something that I'm not gonna be able to use. And so that is where I think, we were getting maybe a little stuck. And we had to like box our way out of that one for sure.
What's cool though is I see people actually using Framer today, Framer sites, as a prototyping tool for
Yep.
mock web apps and some mock mobile apps. And I think that,
Yep.
we talked before. I'm like, why don't you just move forward with that and like actually go into building the web apps with the back end and stuff? Because you already got the front end down, right?
Yep. It's we're that is obviously something we could consider. There's a lot of like market to capture with just websites, and we got like the roadmap for the rest of the years is for us to get extremely good at building larger websites, and make a whole lot more people successful actually building the site that they want. And so that will keep us busy. Even though Framer's probably for making a professional website without code, we're probably like one of the fastest tools to make people successful. It still has a learning curve, and it could be like, if you're comfortable with Sketch and Figma, the learning in an afternoon, you're going to be fine. You're going to understand how the product works. But if you don't have that background, then you're still going to need a weekend to catch up on everything from like what's a breakpoint to how do I put an effect on here and what's a custom domain and where do I get one? Like there's so much involved with understanding your basic understanding of what it takes to make a website that if we can put a dent in that and get more people successful building a site to begin with, then that's part one of the work. And a lot of the AI work that we're doing is geared towards solving that specifically. And then the other one is you can perfectly fine build big websites with Framer, and we're investing a lot in sort of like any feature you would need for building a big website. So we just released search a couple weeks ago, which is one of my favorite product releases we've done this year. Thank you. It's so elegant. You just like all the complexity of search is gone. Like you have to
Mm.
think of absolutely zero things, which is kind of cool. And also, I sometimes I'm like, people forget how complicated this is. It's like you just drag a search icon on your site, and now you can configure it with like 5 buttons, and now works. It's insane.
Yeah, and some
Um,
people have even like modified it. They put it into a component in Framer, and then they make it into a search box input that looks like an input. You click it, and then it opens up just like a real
yep,
like normal site would normally do that. There's so many things you guys have done with Framer in just the past couple of months that have already accelerated why you should use Framer. And I'm not just saying like I use Framer all the time, like every day, trying to figure out how to build our new website, which I'm sure you've probably come across some point on the internet. Through my stupid videos on Twitter. But, you know,
I keep track. I know what you built. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure you can
We're
see the
good. Yeah.
inside of it too. I actually want to ask you about that. So Framer is a platform that's it's private, right? It's
Mhm.
your platform. You guys give access to other people to use your tools, and in exchange they give you money. W- What do you think about all this open source technology and how the web being open source plays into Framer being closed source in a sense? Because you can't access the tools, obviously, from Framer unless you pay for Framer. I mean, to a degree, you can use the free stuff, but it's still locked into your ecosystem. And then we'll talk
Yep.
about AI after open source stuff.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think, what's your question specifically? Sorry. Just like my thoughts on it or like,
I guess Framer could ever allow an open source aspect to it. Obviously, you can build stuff to it because it's using React, but right now it's a closed sourced platform that
yeah,
if you wanted to, you could shut anyone down because for whatever reason, the contract we agree to when we pay for it says we can't sell this stuff, whatever. And we're moving a lot into a decentralized, you know,
yeah,
Web3,
yeah.
right? So how do you see Framer playing a role in that universe?
Unclear for me at this point how we would play into it. I mean, like, yeah, obviously the downside of using any type of tool to produce a live asset is that yeah, you are kind of like locked into any ecosystem, right? But honestly, if you would code everything from scratch and host it on Vercel, then now you have the problem with Vercel, and
Mhm.
so that problem is not. I love Vercel. You could also have that problem with Netlify, right? You can have it with any provider that gives you a service on the internet, and so um, how we would play a role in sort of like decentralized web, I don't really know. We have been thinking about, but this is like
Mhm.
we're not working on this year. I'm pretty open about what we work on and what we're not. We're
Yeah, I
not
love that. I
working on
love
this
that
one,
part
but
about it.
but one idea that we had was that we're now on a track to make it pretty easy for people to design the site that they want without all the like learning curve of code. But the problem that we see a lot of like creators have is the next problem that they have is like, now I made this site. How do I get distribution? How do I get people to come to my site? Because for distribution, you need you need a social media following on Twitter, whatever, Instagram, like your LinkedIn. You need to promote yourself a lot. You need to network a lot. You need to do a lot of stuff to get exposure on your site. You can submit your site on framer.com/awards. You get some exposure there, but how do you get more exposure? And so we're thinking a little bit like, could we make some like maybe social layer over a Framer site that you could maybe like turn on and say, hey, this is my profile and these are a bunch of my friends, and we would link all of those to Framer sites. So you get a little bit of the discovery mechanism of the older web back on the newer in the new web. And so it's not really Web3 blockchain answer that you might were looking for, but that would be something for that we might explore for like a hackathon project or something that would be solving that distribution problem and connect people through sites that they have instead of like Mitchell is connected to Jorn on Twitter, which is it's great, but Twitter is it's for tweets. There's nothing really personal other than the tweets about me or my profile. What my website is, or my website could be, right? And then yeah, maybe we can connect those sites um instead of on Twitter.
That's pretty cool. Would I guess Web3 level domains be acceptable as inputs for the URL domains in Framer at some point, maybe? Just kind of like going
Um
with like the Web3 universe and what that could be brought to Framer? Because I think that if there was some momentum in that space with Framer, it could potentially help Framer get even bigger, but it actually can help the web get bigger and better.
What's a Web3 level domain?
Like you can have like your name, like dot
Uh-huh.
ETH or whatever it is, like have like there's like Ethereum level domain
Yeah, yeah,
URLs
yeah.
and
Yeah, I've
stuff like
seen.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to a startup the other day that was like buying all the last name as domains in the world. I'm like, all right, cool. And then you can buy Jorn.Van Dijk from them for like a relatively modest amount. And then you can run in the future, because this doesn't work yet. So when browsers start to support this, and Brave might be the first one to support it, then you could punch in Jorn.Van Dijk and it will work. And you could also use it for like your wallet. Also, this doesn't also doesn't work yet, but as a theory, I would love this. I would love to get of like .com, and I would love my name to be a thing that I can send around to get paid, or you punch it in a URL bar, you get to my website. This company was called Superlink.me. They run on a Framer website. It's pretty
Oh,
dope. Go check them
that's
out.
right. I tried. My name is, I guess, not important enough. It doesn't exist yet as a URL, but
Same for me. So yeah,
who do I have to
you got
contact to get
your
them
name.
to?
You got to rename yourself to Mitchell James, and then you're good. But other than that, it's yeah.
Well, maybe you can throttle their website and say, "Hey, give me my URL or else."
Yeah, be funny.
Okay, so switching gears to AI.
Sure.
All right, so I know Framer's working on AI as something that could be integrated into the Framer Canvas interface building tool. Where do you see AI's role in the web, and how can you see it benefit Framer and people who don't know how to use websites or don't know how to build
Sure.
websites? Excuse me.
So on the web, I'm not qualified enough to go into that. Like, I don't know how if it's gonna destroy the web or not, or if we're all kind of like on this path, doomsday path, or if it's kind of fine. On average, I'm more of a it's gonna be fine type of guy. So it will probably be fine. But for creative tools and for Framer specifically, I think AI is awesome. I think you know the and but that is because like the learning curve of most of these tools for most people is so astronomically high that they just don't get anything done, right? The learning curve of 3D software is insane, right? You've probably played with Cinema 4D, as did I. And maybe after like a Saturday or a Sunday of messing around with it, you got like one stupid ball with like a lamp on it to render in some, and like that's the state of most of the creative softwares. Like if you play with Premiere, or if you play with like even Framer, right? Okay, so Framer might be easy, but only if you know a lot about web design, and only if you're a designer with prior experience in Figma. If you're not, then you land in Framer, you see layers on the left, don't know what those are, property panel on the right, don't know what that's it, and a white box in the center. And then you have to figure out, like, I go layout, select the tool, draw a box, position it, and then pin it to sides, and then you make a breakpoint, and it's so many steps for people that have no experience operating these tools. And so I think, like, I'm excited about AI solving most of that, because what I see more is like people are pretty good figuring out how to modify something, but getting something from nothing, that's hard, right? A white page or blank page, and no breakpoints and no content and no pictures and no colors and no typefaces. That's a lot of work to now all come up with, put on a page, style, and sort of like make functional, and then publish. A lot of people can do it, but for AI, I'm excited that way more people are going to be able to do it. And that is what I think is exciting. And I don't see it biting real professionals that much anytime soon, because like, as dope as I think Midjourney is, it is not possible to create the exact picture that I want with it. it's phenomenal at speed and creating beautiful pictures. But if I have a really clear idea of like, I want exactly this, we're not at a point yet where AI can give me that, right? Or at least not in my experience, a limited experience playing with Midjourney. And so with site generation, I feel the same. AI is gonna destroy anyone on speed because it's just gonna make your website in 2 minutes. But you as a professional might want something that it's just not gonna do. It's just gonna give you a different site every time. And so for you, it might be to, you know, speed up your process going from an empty site to a site with some content, and that'd be fantastic. And now you like toss some things out that you don't want, you start adding effects and you start tweaking the color scheme and write some different content also with the help of AI. And if we can help professionals spend less time getting the results that they want, also win, right? I'd love for you to come in Framer, generate a page in 5 minutes, modify it for an hour, click publish, solve the next big problem for your company. That'd be way better than 8 hours of messing and like, and so that's, yeah, I'm excited about both of those angles.
The role of creativity is clearly changing. It's evolving over time, especially with these tools, right? So before you had to learn how to code, with punch cards to get a computer to really do what you want or answer the question you want, but you had to know the answer beforehand. With AI, you don't necessarily need to know the answer beforehand. You can also have it explore for you, and then you pick the best option, which is why I think curation and taste will be, I think, the most prominent skills when it comes to AI and designing websites, designing apps, designing, solving problems. Because although we don't know the answer always, we know how we want the answer to feel or how we want it to fit
Yeah.
into our situation differently than a computer would want it to fit in. Because like there's no necessarily way to consider every single person's thoughts at the same time and come up with the best answer for every single person. It's usually either individual or it's going to be too general for everyone. So, like you're saying, these image models are coming up with things that are not quite exactly what you're asking it to do, but they're coming up with a lot of options that are pretty cool, but they're just not exact. It seems like like you said before, the pro web designers are going to still be very relevant because there's going to be a lot of shitty websites made. Not to poo on anyone who's making websites with AI or anyone making anything with AI, but you
I
still
no, I think the opposite. I think
really.
AI is going to raise the bar of like what a acceptable website will look like.
Oh, really? Okay, so
Yeah, because like today, like a lot of people come into the platform, they don't have any design skills. What do you think they make? It's not going to be that pretty, right? Because there's
right.
a learning curve from the tool, but also their skills as a designer. You still got to practice a lot of typography, color, matching, layout, behavior, interactions, blah 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 blah. Right? All of that needs to and AI with AI we can make it so that the base is pretty good. It's a decent looking website, and from there the fine tuning and the improving starts. There's also like one big difference that I think people will understand this the second we launch our AI release, AI release, and that's that with Midjourney and ChatGPT that those are, and I'm by no means an AI professional, but they're like predictive models, right? Where you input something and they try to predict the right thing. You can see in Midjourney, you can see like the picture becoming sharper, 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 sharper until it's sharp. And with site generation for us, we're not at that stage yet at all, right? And so we didn't write some model that is going to predict the right site for your prompt, and it's always unique. And it because like the amount of variables that come into play for what we need to put on a good site is its layout over many browser widths. Its color and contrast that needs to be at a certain level. Its legibility of type. It's so many things that we feel we're not at a point yet with AI that anyone could really do that. And so most of the demos of the website generations that you see online, in the background, it's ChatGPT doing some work on selecting sections and putting those in the right order and modifying, picking colors based on color theming. And so that's also what we are doing. We're making it so that we give ChatGPT instructions based on the prompts, but we have a enormous library of sections that it can pick from that we designed. The Framer team is designing all these sections. And now ChatGPT can like fill in the text, but we have, color generation as an input. We have type generation as an input. And so putting all of that together, like that's product problem solving, primo. And that's what we're trying to do to get people to really good sites quicker. But that is I think is a big difference with the AI isn't really predicting the best site for you just yet. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I'm afraid though it's going to be equivalents of iOS 7, where Apple came out with this base, you said base level, like a base level standard, and everyone who was a developer was like, I don't need a designer anymore. And then they went off and they did these things. We all quickly realized, oh my God, you do need a designer because everything looked the same. Everything was boring and stale. And honestly, I would say that the design community definitely revolted against iOS 7 because it not like it got rid of designers, but it just, in my opinion, and I think I would agree, maybe others would agree, not just usability wise, but visually, aesthetically, uh, it lowered the standards for apps because it removes so much of the talent required to make an app, quote unquote, pretty. Because you don't need to know how to make a gradient, you don't need to know how to make a shine on an icon, and that was something that was a craft level skill that many designers still pride themselves on uh, to be able to do because it's a lost talent now. In my opinion,
Yeah,
it's no
for sure.
longer required for everything. So when you're telling me that AI is going to create a base level, I would wonder because I trust your designers at Framer to create and train this AI to come up with a really great standard. And I'm
Yeah,
assuming it's also going to include great accessibility standards. It's going to include, like you said before, responsive design. So it's going to add more value than just the look of it. But
exactly.
for the pro level designers who are actually right now currently creating those templates that are awesome, and those who are creating those really amazing websites with all those crazy light gradients and stuff going on right now, and that crazy motion, how are they going to play into this if the AI, in your opinion, is going to start raising the bar so much more? How much more do they need to get to be valuable? Or do you think that they
There's
just
gonna
will
be
evaporate and then something else will happen?
no, not at all. I also no, we're not on that track at all. I think they're gonna be continuing to be as valuable as they are to clients or the community. Yeah, none of that is like the thing that we're excited about next with AI, but this is not roadmapped and it could change. So, but what I'm thinking the role of templates and AI is going to be in the near-ish future is that I think template creators will be able to create sections that will be included in the template that they sell that the AI can pick up
Mm.
and then serve use as a base to compile a page. And so you, Mitchell, might buy Cedric's folio template, and has included not like one long template page, but there's 60 sections, and you punch in, make a website for Mitchell, his podcast, the episode with Jorn van Dijk, and include an audio player, 5 links to social, and a newsletter. And the AI will both generate the text, but it will pick the sections from Cedric's template and potentially modify colors and type. And so that's where that seems super powerful. And so yeah, I don't think it will hurt that fast. Um, yeah, at all. But I don't know. Maybe I'm too optimistic to see that this could go wrong. Anyway, I don't think it will. I think it's going to be fine.
Can I ask then if designers like myself are going to be building these templates and then the AI is going to be trained on these templates under the different sections of the template, so it's not going to replicate the exact same website that Cedric built or Alex built or Clara built, but it might be taking apart those websites, dissecting them, and finding the things in those sites that maybe somebody else could reuse.
Mhm.
Would those original sites that it's being trained on benefit from the AI in some sort of value exchange? Like, would it maybe give a credit where that person then can use to put into I don't know, like payments for their own sites or whatnot, or discounts or something? Because It seems like there's now another issue with AI where it's like Midjourney. I think it was Midjourney or one of the other big AIs were saying like they're just trained off of whatever on the internet, and everyone's like, wait a
Yeah,
second, this AI generated an image that looks just like what I illustrated, and it actually is the same thing that somebody else now have access to, but they didn't pay
I
me
see. I
for
see.
it. They
Yeah,
they just paid an AI $20 for it. So how do you
yeah,
reconcile with that? I'm not
yeah.
saying it's
No,
right or
I
wrong.
understand.
I'm just saying like that's the current debate.
Yeah, no, and I see your question, but to clarify, like we are not training any model on this on sites yet. We might in the future, but we are by no means an AI company, right? We're just trying to make AI be useful for our end users, but we are not OpenAI. We're not Midjourney. We're not Adobe. We don't have AI scientists on the or engineers on the payroll, and so. Um, for us it's I guess it's different, and also like with the idea that I just shared, we would make that exclusive to the template that you bought, and not really feed 50 sections from a template creator into the general AI, right? You would have to buy that template and then you can compile pages and have a result that you want faster than you would have just modifying the template from the creator.
That's awesome. I guess I want to ask more about Framer itself. Back to this idea of running a company. What what keeps you up at night?
Mm, this year, relatively little, because we have a good year. And in general, I can always like list 5 or 6 things that I want to improve or that need to go better.
Real quick,
I mean,
does that feeling go up and down? Like, is it waves like consistently, or is it just like random?
um, it is hard. It's a hard question, but a good one. It really depends. I mean, like obviously, last May was very sort of like make it or break it moment for the company. If the yeah we raised our Series B and then decided to pivot, which is I would recommend that to very few people to actually go and try and do that. And
Wait,
so yeah,
why?
there's a lot of like because like you typically raise Series B to go and scale the business, and you have figured out product market fit, and you have figured out some go to market motion of selling into more and more and more businesses, and on average you try to raise Series B when you have an idea on like how to go and scale. You raise your seed round to validate an idea. You raise a Series A when you made your first $1 million maybe, and have an idea of like, okay, this could be something. You get like 10 people running around or 15 people running around. And then the B is sort of when a little bit of like scaling kicks in, and then C and D and E is more like growth, right? Like now it's more capital to reach more people and sell more products. Um, and so yeah, pivoting after a B is we had to, because like we didn't really have another option. But yeah, it was definitely a tough year to pivot the company and go build a different product for, or like refine the product. Like there's still like a lot of old Framer in the product that we pivoted in, but go solve we did go solve a very different problem with it, which is getting from design to the web without rebuilding along the way. Um, so yeah, the last 5, 6, 7 months have been phenomenal. It seems like there's no real red flags of it slowing down. So yeah, that makes me sleep much better at night. But we are in a we are obviously in a competitive space, and I believe that the web is huge, and the market is huge, and it's probably fine if there's a couple of companies doing very well. But yeah, we want our company to go and do really really well, of course. And so getting there is a lot of like that's another 5 to 10 years of really hard work to get it to that level.
Yeah, you say competitors. I don't think there's really anyone that compete with Framer at the moment currently. I know you're probably wondering, probably Webflow and other web design tools are probably thinking, okay, how do we copy Framer's success? Because right now my whole Twitter feed is just like Framer beats Webflow and everything, right? And so I'm sure you sleep really good at night. But it's going to take someone so much effort to convince their company to pivot their entire paradigm of how they actually use components and put those onto a canvas, because it's very different than Framers. Framers is very unique. Strangely, it's very unique because it's like the obvious answer of how you came up with that, from the prototyping. But you had experience with the prototyping, so it kind of brought over to the Framer sites experience. So I think that's really great. How do you like convince your team to pivot then? Like, what is like that conversation like?
Mm, Yeah, we did a little bit of soul searching, like how do you go about this pivot? But pretty, our default, the way that we operate is we try to get back to the work and go figure things out. And also for the phase that we're in right now, it's always the answer. Like something's broken, yeah, you can talk about it for a very long time and get like a lot of people involved, or you can make a list and get to work, right? Most answers start with like someone's gonna make a list and put some work in to get some answers. And we kind of did. And so in the pivot, Koen, my co-founder, and I, we switched it up. We flipped who runs what. So I used to run product, and Koen ran the commercial side. And with the pivot, we flipped that. So Koen started running product, and I started running commercial side. And on the sort of like figuring the product market fit out, I worked with a small team of like 2 or 3 people, on what our go-to market would look like. So figuring out like, is this the right problem to solve? Interviewing a lot of people in the space. Is it big enough? Can we get competitive with which companies? And if you think back 18 months ago, it wasn't that clear to us yet that we could, for instance, go after professional web design and get the tool to a product, or to get a platform to a level where it could output really professional websites. Now we take it for granted, but 18 months ago we're like, maybe we should compete with Squarespace and go all template based and have no freeform canvas. And so, okay, that's a thought. How do you go and validate that? Talk to a bunch of people, talk to designers, talk to like, what do you like about Squarespace? What do you hate about Squarespace? What do you love or hate about Webflow? What do you love or hate about Wix? What do you think about like Shopify? Is there like, that company seems old, it's 20 years. Like, is that an opportunity? And so there's a lot of like figuring out that happens in a very short amount of time. And for that, you need to loop people in and do it together with them. That's not really something that yeah, you can't do it with like 1 or 2 people.
Wow, yeah, I can't imagine it being an easy transition, and I can't imagine it being an easy conversation to say, look, the past number of years we're doing this, we have to change what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, like it's not. And yeah, I mean, but that's sort of like what the price that you're paying for being the founder is like, you want to make the company successful, and sometimes that means doing something drastic. Every time you make a large-ish change, then some people will just naturally disagree and kind of leave, right? So if we tomorrow would change the company up, even just like, I don't know, like we would go do something a little bit different. I don't know, like it needs to be a sizable change, but like any sizable change, there's going to be a couple of folks that are going to say, this is not for me, and that's fine, right? Like that's part of building a business and trying to succeed. And obviously, like with the pivots, we had a little bit of that, and so yeah, now what we're left with is fantastic, right? Now we have like really core group of people that are going for it, which is awesome. And now on top of that, we can build the company out into something bigger again, which I'm happy that we're here. That's the gist of it.
So I have two big questions to kind of end the podcast on, and I want to get into one of them right now, which is about culture. And it sounds like, from what I see from a lot of the employees on from Framer online, from you're the CEO, not the CEO, you're the CEO. You cultivate a culture that's like, it seems to be fun. How do you craft that, and how do you sustain that kind of culture?
Good question. I think what I said before. Like we try to put a lot of emphasis on getting the work done, because like I have a yeah. I spent a bunch of time also at Facebook and in bigger at a bigger tech company, and that's not really for us. Like that, there's a lot of like you know big company stuff involved that is not what I'm good at. You might be surprised that I would be I'm pretty terrible at like politics. That's not really my thing. So and so yeah, part of the culture is like we try to make it enjoyable for everyone to ship really good stuff. And if we've done that now for 8 years, and I think like that's still the thing that gets us going is like I love it when we ship, and I love it when we ship a lot, and I love it when customers are responding well to it. I love making hype on the internet. I love getting people really excited about like a big launch. Honestly, like a lot of it is that. And like every time we're getting like a problem gets a bit hard, then we just default back to like, okay, but let's do work on it. Let's get to work. Let's stop all the writing down and all the other blah blah blah. Just what's the solution look like? And I think that is enjoyable. I also don't know like how well that will scale into many more people. That's why I'm very happy that we're gonna try and maybe double this group. But for the foreseeable future, we're not gonna like quadruple or anything, because that would for sure take that aspect away, which is I think is key to our success right now.
That's awesome. Okay, great answer. And then last but not least, this entire episode and every episode that I do with Pascal, alone, whatever, we like to ask questions about how this person is shaping the design world. And clearly, you and Framer and the rest of the team at Framer are shaping the world of design significantly. I mean, it's literally, like I said before, nonstop. My entire Twitter feed, everyone's talking about Framer. And they're making great websites. They're making really beautiful things. And I love that. I love seeing people create. I love seeing people not just create, but also have impact on what they are trying to help that creation around. Like when they're trying to help a business with a new website, trying to promote something, trying to build their brand. I love seeing that. I love seeing people succeed. And I think design is really helping them do that, especially with designing with a tool like Framer that helps them design. How has the world of design shaped you?
Ooh, good one. The first thing that I knew I wanted to do more with was honestly was the Mac. Like the I was in art academy. That's probably like the first thing that shaped me, like art academy, sort of like graphic design background. But I knew I was drawn to like tech, and specifically I was drawn to the Mac, and then more specifically OS X, OS 10, first one with like Aqua everything, and I was like intrigued by that the most. And I think like the first 10 years of my career have been about that, about like mastering that craft that you just described of rendering icons with rich detail and texture and shading and light, and playing in 3D tools to get ideas of like how to get better at that. Um, Honestly, like that has been massively influential for me. I thought iOS 7 sucked. Like I'm like, what the hell? They're taking all the fun. Like what? Everything's out. What was this? And so obviously, design is much more about aesthetics. And I think as a designer, I wanted to transition into building something more than pretty aesthetics. And so that was a reason to become a founder and start this company. And I think for Framer and for the like, I love it when people succeed making something weird on the internet. Yeah, I wasn't too big of a fan of the design system movement, where like most things started to look pretty similar. But I'm happy that we're back at a place. Like I was a pretty big fan of Flash, and yeah, I'm not offended when people say like Framer feels kind of like modern version of Flash. I'm like, hell yeah, yeah, that's what it should feel like. Like yes, um, Yeah. Does that answer your question a little bit? Or
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And I just
okay.
want to say that one of my earliest memories of doing design work and really getting into design, discovering the internet of this like tech scene, was seeing the Sofa website and seeing all the
Oh.
beautiful
Oh wow.
iconography, and the layout was just so beautiful, airy, simple, and just it was just it. Like it was authentically it. And it was a quirky name, Sofa. It was, it was just everything around it was just so magical. And I
Thank you.
still, I'm sure, have screenshots of that website on my backup drive somewhere. And I know
It's
you
still
can.
live.
Yeah, no, it's amazing that it's lasted so long, and it really did stand the test of time. But it's one of those things that helped me and many others feel inspired to achieve something similar. So thank you for doing all of that and helping out with
That's awesome.
Sofa, and
Thank you.
going to Facebook and coming out and building this great tool that we all kind of fell in love with, and then now you fall in love with again with Framer. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming on the pod.
I forgot to mention one thing, but we ran our community on Discord, and it got a bit messy and had a couple of downsides. And so one thing that I forgot to call out was that Mitchell was one of a few people that pointed out, it's like, hey, this needs to be a little bit like of a better community. And you started playing with a different platform, and it was definitely one of the we listened to that and started investigating a bunch of different solutions. I'm very happy for the nudge. So thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I thought that it was weird that you guys didn't have a community. I was like, why don't you have like an easy to access thing? Like, I hate Discord. No offense to Discord and the designers there, or developers, or the whole company there. I hate the product so much. I hate using it, and some
I,
people love
I
it.
I'm a
It's
fan.
fine.
I'm a fan. I like it, but yeah, it's definitely like as a platform, it's just it's sort of like meant for something else. It's not really for what we want to get out of it. And I'm super stoked with Framer.community. If you're not on it, go check it out. It's awesome. We're close to 6K members. It is nuts. It's going very
That's
fast.
awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah.
And hopefully we'll be posting our resource, everythingframer.com, soon. So check that out as well.
Thank you so much for having me, Mitchell. I had a blast.